Let's spend a little bit of time talking about how you can make sure you've got good quality video and audio within your video calls with your prospects. Now, I've done an entire course on this on Udemy where I've really dug into this in huge amounts of detail. So here we're kind of just going to go on a bit of a whistle-stop tour within how it kind of pertains towards actually selling within the Sandler system and just selling in general to people online. But if you reach the end of this section, you go, I could do with a bit more detail. And then there's this lecture and a couple more lectures following, and you're going, I just need a little bit more on this. Then check out the course and have a look and see what you think about it, and then hopefully that can kind of expand on this knowledge a little bit. But really, there's a couple things and quick wins that you can do to try and improve the quality of your video calls. And I'm going to start with video and sound. So first of all, what device should you be using for your video meetings? Well, the first go-to one is often a laptop. Why a laptop? Well, it's relatively stationary. Most of them, maybe not most of them, a huge amount of them have video, the facilities have a camera and have a microphone kind of built into them. And oftentimes they'll do the job just straight away, and they're really good. But they might not have a camera, they might not have a microphone built into them, in which case you might want to get yourself like a little USB webcam that you can kind of place on top of your laptop as you go. But if that's not an option, or webcams are a little bit expensive or just not quite the quality you would want, then you've got other options as well. You could use an iPad that you have around, because they almost all do have a camera and a microphone, or just a tablet in general, or you could just use your trusty mobile phone. What I would say though, if you happen to use your tablet or mobile phone, do try not to kind of end up sitting there kind of walking around with it kind of being held up. That can look a little bit weird, and we talked in the previous section about making sure that you're not kind of snapping your prospect out of this comfort zone, in this place where they feel they're safe to be talking to you about the pains by doing something weird. I would say having the background zoom and zip around as you're holding the meeting, that's a bit weird, and that's definitely going to kind of take them out of that sort of that area that you want to keep them in. So if you absolutely do have to use a mobile phone or a tablet, it finds a way of propping them up at eye level. Eye levels are quite important. In front of you, you could get a tripod for your mobile phone. They're not too expensive. There's options out there that you could kind of use. But in first instance, I think a laptop is a really good choice to go ahead with. So when you've sorted this out, you need to have a bit of a think about lighting. Now, what you absolutely don't want to do is you do not want to have the window behind you when you're filming. You don't want to have the window behind you when you're filming. The window behind you when you're filming is not what you want, right? Just thought I'd want to let that kind of sink in a little bit there. Why? Because basically your device will be doing something called auto-exposing. So it'll be basically figuring out how it wants to expose your image. Does it want to expose to your face? Does it want to expose to the light behind you? You know, where in the image is it exposing to? So if you happen to be filming with the window behind you, it's basically going to be exposing to one of two places. First of all, it's going to be exposing to the outside world, in which case you're just going to be just a silhouette sitting there in the image. It's going to look really, really weird. Or it's going to expose to you, and the outside world is going to come across as this big, gigantic ball of glowing light behind you. And that's not a good thing. So neither of these two things are particularly good. Instead, what you should do is just rotate yourself around 180 degrees. Then all of a sudden, you're not fighting against the light outside. You're using the light outside to make sure that you look really, really good. And it gives a nice flat light because the sun is quite bright, generally speaking. So that's something to think about. You do want to make sure that the background behind you is nice and tidy and looks really, really good. I've got a lecture in a couple of lectures time where I'm talking about that in a little bit more detail, but yeah, generally speaking, don't use the window behind you. It's just not very good in general. In terms of sound, what can you do to try and give yourself a good quality sound? Well, first of all, close your eyes. Have a bit of a think about the sounds that you have going on around you. Do you have any fans? Do you have a boiler? Do you have, I don't know, some loud piping? Do you have windows open with a road outside? Do you have any of these things that can kind of be quite distracting? If you have any of these, well, see if there's anything that you can do to kind of control or mitigate these. So if you have some trial traffic outside, then shut the window. If you have a boiler in the corner, turn that off. You have a fan, turn it off. You know, I don't need to teach you guys how to suck eggs here, but just try and avoid that background sound as you go through, and that's definitely a big thing. If you're sitting there going, well, you know, I can't really get around some of these, then what you could do is you could get a little one of the sets of earphones that you get when you have a mobile phone, and then you can kind of plug that into your laptop, and then kind of have the microphone quite close to you, and that will generally sound a little bit better as you go through. Try not to make sure it doesn't rust around on your clothing, because it can do very easily, and it's not quite so good. If you want to really go kind of balls to the wall and really go all out on this thing, then you can get USB microphones that you can plug into your computer. Something like Blue makes some really good ones. The Yeti and the Snowballs are quite good, but there's a whole host of different microphones that you can get that'll just make you sound really, really good as well. And if you have a camera on your laptop but don't have a microphone that's working, well then one of these can be a really good way around that and be something that you could use. Finally, have a bit of a think about your internet connection. So this might not be something that you're in total control about, because it may well be that the area that you're in doesn't have a good quality internet connection. If so, well, what can you do to try and kind of speed things up a little bit? Well, you could try and stop that big upload that you have going on in the background. You could stop the big download you have going on in the background. You could stop other people kind of utilizing the internet in such a heavy manner whilst you're having this video meeting. This might be something that you kind of have to think about a little bit laterally, but just maybe just have some conversations with people around you to make sure you're not hammering your internet connection as you go through. Check out speedtest.net to try and see what your internet connection speed is like, and then kind of go from there. And that's generally a good benchmark to figure out if it's healthy or unhealthy as you go through. But yeah, if you don't have good quality internet, then maybe just try and minimize the other stuff that's going on in your bandwidth as you go. But largely, a lot of this stuff is just kind of common sense to a certain extent, but kind of see what you've got access to and go from there.